Hi again. I told you in our last chat I was going to tell you some of the things about being an escort. The common question is, how do you get a stiffy? What do you have to do all the time? Did you ever refuse a client? Did you ever have people that were revolting? Yes, I got clients who were not my type. No, I never turned a client down. I mean, as in the sense, because of who he was or what he looked like, I may late at night turn the client down on the phone because I'm going to bed or something, but I never turned a client down face to face, never. Okay, what disability you had, what colour, creed. I remember having a client one time and he wouldn't take his shirt off at the beginning, and I sort of saw through it and saw a bandage on his stomach, and I said, "Oh, do you have a colostomy?" And he said, "Oh, yes." And he went, "Do you want me to go?" And I went, "No, why would I want you to go?" He said, "Well, I've never yet got a massage from anybody. They always want me to leave." And I went, "It's not going to leak, is it?" He says, "No." I said, "It's not going to smell, is it?" He says, "No." I said, "So what's your problem?" "No, come on, get your shirt off." And I said, "And actually, if you don't mind, can I ask you a million questions? I'm fascinated. I have IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and I have problems, and I have friends with other stomach problems and bowel problems, so I'm curious." And he was delighted to meet somebody who wasn't put off, became a regular customer after that, a really nice man, and all because I was accepting. I'm not going to refuse somebody just because they're grossly overweight, or, you know, people have psoriasis and they're embarrassed about it. I can't catch psoriasis. I know what it is. It's no problem to me. I'll massage you. And some of the sex stories, yes, you do get to, especially as Christopher in the playroom, I got to do some pretty weird and wonderful things in there as Christopher the Bondage Master. And I remember the first client that came for that, I was nervous because I'd never done it before. I knew nothing about it. No friends who'd done it. I didn't know anything. But the first client came and it was just outside my front door, and he rang the doorbell. I was about to open the door and I stood there in all my leather gear, prepared. I was all toned up at the gym, and this is me back then. It's a bit shiny. So I used to go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week. I was in good shape, very olive skin, suntan, so black hair. And I stood behind the door, went into one of those panics. I thought, what am I going to do? Because when I open the door to a normal client for a massage, it's, "Hi, how are you? Come on in. Where have you come from today? Would you like some tea?" I thought, well, don't do that as a bondage master. I went into one of those momentary panics where my brain just shut down completely. And I came out of it and opened the door and went, "You're late. Get up the stairs." And he went, "Oh, sorry." I went, "Sorry, what?" And he went, "Sorry, Chris." And I went, "It's Christopher for a start, and to you, it's Sir. Get it?" I meant it. And as he went up the stairs ahead of me and I pointed him up towards where the dungeon was, I was like, "Oh my God, where does that come from?" That's just not me at all. I'm not aggressive. But I soon realised that there is a side to everybody and anybody when you want to be. Oh, of course. And Christopher's sessions, I enjoyed. You get to ask to do some weird, wacky things you've never done before. Water sports, never done that before. Really got into it. Some of the more sleazy side of sex, which we won't go into now. But there were some funny stories. The priest I went to see in the convent, the nun opened the door. I didn't know I was going to a convent. I was just told to ask for Father blah blah. And so I got to this place. It was a 30-foot cross on the building that told me something. Maybe Father isn't, Mr. and Mrs. Anyway, this nun showed me through. There's about 30, 40 nuns all rushing around doing things. And this little dumpy priest lived in this little apartment within the building. And I have to say, of all the things I'd done, this was right back at the very beginning as well, he was the most sick and twisted man I ever met. Nothing happened. We sat having a cup of tea, side by side, sort of L shapes to each other, cup of tea, biscuit. And he said, "What would you do to me if you were in the church downstairs after a sermon on a Sunday?" And I went into this Cockney accent and took him through this journey, all through the church, all around the church, over the font, pissing in the font, and over the altar with the candles and poo-poos and all sorts of really, it just comes out of my mouth. I don't know where it comes from. And ad-lib in the moment. The little boy inside me is really quite naive, but the adult I sort of, it's like Bette Midler said one time, "Did you ever grow up to be what you thought you would?" And the answer, she went, "Oh, hell no." I get myself into one of these comedy routines, and suddenly I go, "Who is this that's in here doing this? This isn't me." And of course it is you. And but I would do some scenes and think, "Oh my God, have I just done that?" And I'd have to phone up a friend and go, you never guess what I've just done. Ah, never laugh. You've got to laugh. You've got to see the funny side of it. It can, if you internalize it, especially when you're doing sort of slightly stranger side of sex, if you internalize it because you're doing it quite often as an escort, you really can get fucked up. So you've got to protect yourself and have a laugh with it, have a joke with it. I always chatted with my clients, always gave them my time. I remember one guy one time, very big, heavy-built guy, tall. I can't remember what I did with him. It was just massage, I think. But when I first touched him, he had this great empathic, I got this great empathic sort of oof wave from him. And at the end of the session, he was chattering away. And I said, have you got time to stop for a cup of tea? He couldn't believe I wanted him to stay longer. So I took him down to the garden, and we sat in the garden, having a cup of tea and a piece of cake. And I said, look, you just told me upstairs while you were getting changed that you were a teacher for 45 years in the same school, and now that you've retired, you feel your life is worthless. Let's look at this a different way, shall we? And we sat in the garden, and I just took him through about 10 or 15 minutes, or about half an hour, of just chatting and of self-worth and self-appreciation of value. Nothing special. I'm not trained in this stuff. It's just, I wanted to we're human beings. Let's just be human to each other, caring. And he left, and when he left, he gave me a great big hug and said, you're a really nice guy. I said, and so are you. And he came back about 15 months later, a changed man. He said, I really wanted to thank you. I was like a broken down old car, and you repaired me. I said, well, I didn't repair you. You repaired yourself. You know, I just led you to water. So well done, you. You pat yourself on the back. And he kept wanting to sort of say, no, it was you, John, you, John. It was like, no, it was you. And thank you for coming back and sharing that with me. It brings me great joy to know that you may have come for sex, a wank, whatever we did. But what I would say the angels actually sent you to see me for, amongst all those escorts and masseurs advertising, is because they knew you needed some healing. And it can be that simple, just reaching out and touching somebody. He may have come for sex. Even sex is very healing. You've got a married man in a relationship and there's no sex anymore. And if they can have some, maybe they're gay in a relationship or straight in a relationship, but if they can have sex with a girl or a guy or whatever, discreetly, privately on the side, it keeps the marriage together. One of my escorts one time came to see me for a job on my agency, and he said that he'd been married for 12 years, and in that 12 years he'd only seen his wife naked once, and every 6 or 7 weeks in the dark, under the quilt, she'd pull her nightie up and say, go on then, and then she'd rush to the bathroom and wash. And I looked at him. I have to ask my escorts to strip off at the interview so I can see what they look like, and I sort of looked at him and went, your wife laid next to you for 12 years naked or clothed, and he went, yep. And I went, I'd lick you all over, dear. I will lick you. He was stunning, absolutely stunning, man. And you really do think there were some sad relationships out there, whatever her... She wasn't lesbian. I mean, I just say, is she lesbian? No, she married again. But whatever her problem is, it's just like... They had kids, had 2 kids, miraculously. He's still an escort to this day. Successful. Did very well. Gorgeous man. Mad. Sex is a great healer, and it's also a great destroyer. If people, men or women, are sexual beings, and if you can't get enough sex, and it doesn't have to be every day, every week, every month, but even quarterly, something. I remember my father used to get bad nosebleeds, and really bad nosebleeds. And it was decades. I think it was in my 20s or 30s. I said to mother, because they'd divorced and I hadn't seen him for years, and I said to her, what? I suddenly remembered all these nosebleeds, and so it was because your father said that he didn't have enough sex, and he didn't like to masturbate, and so he used to sort of walk around with this big, I think it was like a hint to mother, time for sex, or look what happens, poor dad. Anyway, let's talk some more stories a little later on. All right, keep tuned.